free world.
Yeah. My hitters be moving and shaking and stay out the streets. Yeah. Your hitters be hating, your hitters be looking so weak. Yeah. My hitters be moving and shaking and stay out the streets. Yeah. Your hitters be hating, your hitters be looking so. Snuff the shooter, snuff the looter, snuff the booster, snuff the money mover. Snuff the hater, snuff the player, snuff your hairline, tape up and shape up.
Welcome to another Hail to the Culture podcast. I am your boy Rome, here with my man Bryce. Bryce, how you feeling, man?
Man, I'm feeling great. There's no other way for me to feel right now. Redskins got the big W, and my week thus far is complete.
Yeah, man, beating Dallas is always a good feeling, man. I'm feeling great. It's a lovely day out here. The sun is shining. So let's go ahead and jump right into it, man. Let's start off with our first segment of the day. We're going to get into this victory over the Cowboys, man. Now, for those of you who didn't see it, it was a thrilling game, another great one between the Redskins and Cowboys, one of the best rivalries in all of football, all of sports, really. The Redskins hung on by a thread, man. So it was the defensive game that we all been waiting for the Skins to see. We shut down Zeke. I believe he had 33 yards, same amount as Dak. That's exactly what we were talking about. Anybody who's been listening to our podcast knows that that's what that we had been saying that the Redskins needed to do for this game. There were some problems with the passing game. A couple guys injured. Alex Smith still looked a little jittery. But, I mean, at the end of the day, they got the W, albeit by somewhat of a lucky – well, we got the penalty on the field goal, and you could kind of say it was lucky the way that it bounced off the upright. But how do you feel about the victory, Bryce, man? A lot of people are saying it's a lucky W. My opinion on it is a win, but what do you think?
Man, the only people I've heard call it a lucky W are Cowboys fans. Let me start with that. We, as Redskins fans, we've been on the opposite end of so many of those L's. I mean, how many times can you count, Rome, that we lose a game on a fluke penalty and then it's a fluke field goal or a missed extra point or something ridiculous that we lose the game off? Finally, you know, karma is coming back around on our side, and we're becoming the beneficiary of some of those.
Yeah, man. I would have to agree with you on that. The Redskins have lost a couple games in that same fashion. It's good to see them win one in that fashion. And although I am very excited about this win, I do want to point out a couple of the flaws that they had. Alex Smith did not look great, and I've been campaigning for Alex Smith this whole season, you know. But I do think he needs to play a little bit better. But I think the majority of that is going to stem from the O-line being shaky in pass protection and the overall play calling. Now, as happy as I am about this W, Washington could have done a lot better passing the ball. Jordan Reed had 4 targets, only caught 2 balls. That's got to change going forward. And we did see a little bit of an emergence of Josh Dachshund. I'm gonna let you talk a little bit about that one.
Well, yeah, let's definitely delve into this passing game, man, because I think this is where we differ a little bit. I'm much more willing to put the passing game and the lack of production in the passing game on the shoulders of Alex Smith, mainly because I haven't seen the quarterback that I expected. What I mean by that is I knew Alex's shortcomings, but I also felt that one of his strengths was knowledge of the system, knowledge of situational football, and knowledge in general. And in this last game, to me, Alex didn't show that, and that's one of the main reasons we have him. Don't get me wrong, he still kept the turnovers down, which is great, especially coming from Kirk Cousins last season. But we need a guy that's going to hit those open tight ends in the end zone, a la Jeremy Sprinkle. We got to make these plays. And this game was far too close for comfort, especially in a game that felt like we were controlling the tempo of the game the entire time. So moving on to Josh Dachshund, man, I think he had, about 3 catches for 42 yards, if I'm not mistaken. But just 3 catches, but they're all impressive, mainly because they were contested balls. They were the type of throws that the quarterback has to have trust in his receiver to throw him those type of balls. And for Dachshund, he was able to seal those those defensive backs away from the ball, shield those backs away from the ball, and he's able to make catches. And to me, that's the Dachshund we need to see. He's a big body. And Alex Smith, it seems like this last game finally realized, I've got a big body receiver that I can trust in these certain situations.
Yeah, man, I would agree with that. I've been tough on Dachshund, but it seems like he's slowly but surely starting to get more trust from the quarterback. And I think that'll come once Alex starts to feel more comfortable in the offense. Now, I'm not ready to put it all on Alex just yet. Jay Gruden is supposed to be this great quarterback coach, great offensive mind. He's definitely got to start putting Alex in some better situations. But I will say when Alex is in those good situations like that touchdown that he could have hit and should have hit to Jeremy Sprinkle, he's got to make those plays. He absolutely has to make those plays. But, I mean, I'm not going to – we don't need to throw too much onto that just because, we were missing two of our three starting receivers and Chris Thompson. So, hopefully the passing game will improve once those guys just come back in general. But let's jump into these studs and duds, man, while we're talking because I believe we got some interesting ones, man. I'm kind of interested to hear who you have for your stud this weekend.
Anybody who's been keeping up with any of my work over the Redskins this season, they know I've been tough on our outside pass rushers, namely Ryan Kerrigan as well as Preston Smith. Those guys shut me up Sunday. They shut me all the way up and are a big part of the reason that we won the game. Mainly Ryan Kerrigan. Kerrigan was great. Kerrigan was great Sunday. I mean, the dude was all over the field, finished with 2 sacks, and, of course, the strip sack that I'm not going to say sealed the game, but in hindsight, put the game out of reach for the Cowboys. I mean, I can't say enough about Kerrigan. Honestly, we've both been hard on him, and I can't say enough. Now, for Preston, I think he leads the league in a new stat I've come up with. It's called AS. It stands for almost sack. So Preston leads the league in almost sacks. But, I mean, those almost sacks, they still force that quarterback to rush. They force him to get uncomfortable in the pocket. And he was able to do that again on Sunday. And, I mean, the biggest play, of course, was scooping that ball for the touchdown. And I know that play, if you watch the play back on All 22, it looks so simple, but how many times as a Skins fan has the fumble been on the ground, we go to pick it up, and the guy doesn't pick it up, he just knocks it over, they kick the ball around, next thing you know it goes out of bounds, or it goes through the end zone for a safety, and we don't get the points that we deserve. So shout out to Preston for having the sure mitts to pick that ball up and secure it for a touchdown. So those guys are my studs today. How about you, Rome?
Yeah, man, that's a good one, man. I'm going to piggyback off that a little bit because for my studs, I went with the entire front seven, including those two, because I just don't see how it could go to anyone else, to be completely honest. Ryan Kerrigan had 2 sacks, like you were saying. Everyone's been calling on him and Smith all season to make some plays. That sack fumble, Kerrigan with the strip, Preston Smith picking it up for 6. That was the play of the game, really, man. That's why we won. And then I got to give a ton of credit to the young guys in between them, because I really just feel like they worked as a whole unit. Jonathan Allen had a sack. Ryan Anderson had a sack. Ron Payne had a pass deflection. I mean, these young dudes are balling. These young dudes are giving this whole team energy. And if you notice, DJ Swearinger, who was playing big in the beginning, kind of had a little bit of a lighter day towards the end of it. He credited the fact that his stats were lower towards the end of the game to those guys up front because they were moving so much and making so much happen. I mean, I want to say this is Ezekiel Elliott's worst game other than a Week 2 game last year against the Broncos. So this is pretty damn impressive. Ezekiel Elliott has been tearing this league up, taking the league by storm. And here we are with our front seven holding him to his worst statistical game this season. So, yeah, I got to give my stud to the entire defensive line, the entire front seven, for a hell of a performance.
Yeah, man.
But now we got –
It's definitely. Sorry for interrupting, but it's definitely impressive, man. That front seven, in just 2 short years, they've definitely changed their fortunes, and it's become to me the biggest strength of the football team.
Yeah, I would agree with that, man. Last place in rushing last year, and look at us this year. But now we're gonna jump into the duds because it wasn't all good as we were saying. I'm gonna go ahead and give you my dud first, just to piggyback off what I was saying in the first segment. The play calling, man, I got to give the dud to Jay Gruden because as the head coach of a football team, if this win was lucky for anyone, I wouldn't say it was lucky for the players because they played their asses off. I would say it was lucky for Jay Gruden. Jay Gruden got bailed out by that missed kick and that penalty because let's face it, he didn't call the greatest game There was plenty of times let's start. I want to start by looking at the red zone. The Redskins failed to score touchdowns in the red zone, and they have been since before Alex Smith got to the team. This was a problem when it was Kirk Cousins, and a lot of us put it on Kirk Cousins. He had turnovers in the red zone. He wasn't the greatest QB in the red zone. The same problems seem to be occurring right now with Alex Smith minus the turnovers. So to me, that speaks more of the head coach and what's going on with the play calling down in the 20. So for me, Jay Gruden's got to figure out a way to scheme guys open, and Alex Smith does have to hit the play. Or maybe they should just pound it with AP. The way the Cowboys game was going, you would think that they would have just handed it to AP 3 times once they're on the goal line and just let him get in somehow. But they have to start scoring third-quarter touchdowns, and they have to start scoring touchdowns in the red zone. And I put that on Jay Gruden. So for this game, I'm gonna give my dud to Coach Gruden.
I can see that. I do think there were some moments where Gruden. Well, my biggest problem with Gruden this year is that he's been, in my opinion, a little too conservative. But I'm going to have to differ with you just a tad bit because, like I alluded to earlier, I put more of this on Alex Smith than I do on Gruden. And that brings me into my dud. And my dud for this game was Alex Smith. I do think the game planning could be a little bit better. I think one thing about Gruden, I think he's finally realizing what his team's strengths are. And I think a part of those team strengths is he's realizing that I have a quarterback who's not going to take the necessary risks that I need for us to put up the type of points that I'm accustomed to. But if I protect him and protect him in the offense, he will not lose me the game. And I think that last game was completely indicative of that from Jay Gruden. Alex Smith, on the other hand, is still unable to find open guys. Well, let me take that back. There's moments where he's finding the open guys, which is a positive thing. But he's not hitting them, and that's very concerning to me because one thing I always thought about Alex Smith, I thought his accuracy was great. I never questioned his accuracy when he came to Washington. But now, 7 weeks in, accuracy is one of his biggest problems. I highlight 2 plays in particular. One was the Josh Dachshund deep ball. Josh Dachshund, don't get me wrong, it wasn't 2 or 3 steps, but he definitely had a step on his defender, and Alex Smith just laid the ball out there a little too far. And that could have possibly been a touchdown. Definitely would have been a field switching play where it gave us great field position. So he missed that one. And, of course, the one I talked about earlier, the wide open sprinkle in the end zone, these are plays that Alex has just got to hit. And for me, this is now the 2nd week in a row where I see legitimate yards and legitimate touchdowns left on the field because of Alex's play. It's something that needs to change, but it's also something that I can see changing because it could be a product of him just not being used to the offense. It might not be a product of declining accuracy, declining arm talent. It could very well be a product of a guy that's still got to get used to his offense. And because of that, I do see Alex improving as the season goes on. But right now, I got to give him the dud.
Yeah, man, I would agree with you a little bit there. I would say both of our duds, looking at both of our duds, I think it was safe to say that the marriage between Jay Gruden and Alex Smith has not been what Redskin fans have been anticipating or hoping for so far. But I would agree with you that it will get better. I definitely see it getting better. Real quick, man, I got a couple fill-in-the-blank questions for you. I'm going to just throw these at you real quick, and just give me whatever comes to your mind first, man. So right now Washington is in first place in the NFC East. So the Redskins need to blank to stay on top of the NFC East.
The Redskins need to keep AP healthy to stay at top of the NFC East. Don't get me wrong. The defense is balling, and if the defense plays at this level, you're always going to be in games. But as we talked about, the offensive production, especially from the passing game, has not been where it is. The one guy who's been the workhorse, who hasn't wavered, is Adrian Peterson. If he can keep doing what he's doing, we'll stay atop the NFC East. If not, we're going to need to see that passing game get a little better.
Yeah, man, something tells me we don't have 4 victories without Adrian Peterson right now. All right, the second question is going to be, the best part about beating Dallas is blank.
The best part about beating Dallas was dong. That's the sound. That's me simulating the sound of that football hitting the upright. Man, that sound was music to my ears. Honestly, man, just hearing that sound, like that literally made my week. I mean, like, just the sound alone. I wish we could get a little sound bite of it and just replay it right now. But it was perfect.
Yeah, man, my house erupted, man. My whole family was screaming, man. That was great. That was a classic Redskin moment. All right. Let's go ahead and dive into the rest of the NFC East here real quick for our next segment. You wanna start us off with the power rankings first?
Yeah, man. Let's do it. So a super eventful weekend and Monday night in the NFC East. A lot happened. So let's go through our power rankings. Number 1, Skins fans, we've waited. If you've been keeping up on the website, goodassports.com, you know, we haven't been able to grab the top spot in the NFC East. If you look around the NFL, if you go to ESPN's power rankings, somehow they still have us 14 and got the Eagles number 10 in the whole league. Well, look, on Good Ass Sports NFC East power rankings, that changes today. The Washington Redskins are the number 1 team on paper in the NFC East, as well as in our NFC East power rankings. And let me tell you why. If you look at the Eagles, let's just get away from Washington's win over Dallas. If you look at the Eagles' loss to the Carolina Panthers, there were tons of similarities between that and the Redskins' win against the Carolina Panthers. Mainly the fact that both teams were up 17-0. Against the Redskins, well, the defense ended up being Cam Newton's kryptonite. Against the Eagles, Cam put his Superman cape on and threw for 200 yards in the fourth quarter. 200 yards in the fourth quarter? Wrong. That sounds a little ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Completely
so just for that alone, man, we can see that that Eagles team and that Eagles defense especially is not the same unit it was last season. For that, they dropped to the number 2 spot. The Redskins get the top spot. The Cowboys remain at number 3. They did nothing against the Redskins to really make you think otherwise. Don't get me wrong. If you're telling me that a 5-yard illegal snap penalty is the difference between your team winning and losing, your team did not do enough to win the football game. The Redskins controlled that game the whole time. Anybody watching, it was clear. I mean, the Cowboys' first touchdown came on a double move against a rookie corner who's not even supposed to be in the game right now. And then their second drive, the Redskins were just playing soft coverage, trying to let them use as much clock as possible. I mean, it wasn't the most impressive win from the Skins, but it definitely wasn't an impressive showing for the Cowboys. Getting into number 4 spot, the New York Giants. Well, if you heard Odell talk after the game, he said the Giants are a 1-6 team on paper, but it doesn't feel that way. Well, Odell, I no longer care about how it feels. You guys are one of the worst teams in the NFL, and if you guys don't make a change come next week against the Redskins, you may be looking at your team that doesn't feel like the worst team picking with the number 1 overall pick in the draft. So hopefully the Skins can handle business against the Giants next week, and we won't have to have a whole conversation about that one. But that wraps it up for the NFC East power rankings.
Yeah, man. So we're going to talk about the Cowboys' big trade a little bit later, but I just wanted to know if that's going to affect the power rankings at all, man. Do you see that trade making Dallas a little bit more of a powerhouse?
No, the Amari Cooper deal, to me, is a completely reactionary deal. I mean, you take a big loss to a division rival, you look around at yourselves and you say, what do we need? You say, we need more firepower. And you throw a first-round pick for Amari Cooper. That's not it if you ask me. But as a Redskins fan, I'm definitely happy to see them give up a first-round pick for a guy who, in my opinion, doesn't play with the fire of a true number 1 receiver.
Yeah, man. Let's just go ahead and get into that trade because there's a couple trades, too. We'll get into those. Let's start with the Amari Cooper one, though. So I tend to agree with you. From the perspective of the Redskins, I like Amari Cooper. I think he's a number 1. I don't think he's worth a number 1 overall pick. I think the Cowboys completely reached here, completely reactionary. I think that I think Jerry Jones, I honestly believe this, Jerry Jones did this move because Washington was interested, Philadelphia was interested. After losing to Washington, there was no way that he could let Amari Cooper go to a division rival knowing that he has nothing on his team in the way of wide receivers. So I feel like this was a completely desperate move. I feel like they're reaching, and if it doesn't work out for Cooper in Dallas, this move's gonna look really horrible in a couple weeks if this doesn't work out.
And that's for sure. Let alone a couple weeks. Just imagine a couple months. Imagine if Dallas, let's just say their season doesn't go what they think it could with Amari Cooper, and let's say they end up with a top 10 pick, which is not too far-fetched thinking about how their season has unfolded thus far. I mean, if you have to relinquish a top 10 pick for Amari Cooper, man, that's the type of stuff that can set your franchise back. And I'm just happy it's the Cowboys making the deal and not the Skins. I was on board with the Skins trying to bring in Amari Cooper if it was for a second rounder or lower, but not for a first rounder, especially when you see what a guy like Daron Payne can do for the culture of your team.
Yeah, man, I agree. I couldn't imagine giving up 2 first-round picks or any first-round picks right now for a wide receiver. You build your team with first-round picks, and a lot of people are giving John Gruden, the Raiders coach, a lot of flack. But I think the true test will be what he picks with these draft picks that he's trading away. Another big trade from around the league, or another possible trade that could happen with a big name receiver is Demaryius Thomas. There's been reports that he's on the trade block. So with Cooper off the board on the way to Dallas, do you think Washington should take a look at Thomas?
Oh man, this one's a little tougher because although Demaryius Thomas is a little bit older than Amari Cooper, to me he plays with a much better. He plays with a lot more fire. Just plain and simple. Demaryius Thomas is a guy that his head's burning on fire every time he plays, and I love that attitude. I think back to the type of plays he used to make when Peyton was the quarterback. Don't get me wrong, it's been some time now, but I think Demaryius Thomas's lack of production, unlike Amari Cooper's, is much more of a result of having just terrible quarterback play since Peyton's been gone. And I mean, Keenum this year hasn't been much better. And it's really tough as a receiver, especially like a receiver like Demaryius Thomas, who doesn't have pure breakaway speed, so he's not going to be butt naked open when the quarterback throws the ball to him. It's a lot tougher for that guy to shine with bad quarterback play. The way Alex Smith is playing right now, maybe he still wouldn't be able to shine. But judging on those balls that Alex Smith threw to Josh Dachshund last game, those slants, that's something that Demaryius Thomas could come in and eat with immediately. He could really eat on our offense running those type of slant patterns. And third round, no, I'll take that back. 4th round pick or lower, and I'm willing to trade for Demaryius Thomas. He's just a little too old to me to offer anything higher than maybe a 3rd at the highest, but anything higher than a 3rd or 4th round selection, he's just a little too old for me to offer that.
Yeah, man, I would have to pass on trading for Thomas at all. I mean, maybe for the right pick, the right price, but I would say the Redskins only pulled the trigger on that trade due to injury. I think they're going to end up sticking with what they got. The thing with Cooper was the age, so it was like there's a little bit more upside with that. But Thomas is kind of right in the middle of the pack as far as age goes. There's not too much upside. I would think that Washington is going to likely just stick with what they got. Like we were talking about earlier, Dachshund's starting to emerge. I mean, really, Dachshund is the key because the jury's still not out on him. If he can have some big games this season and he can show up and prove that he might still have the chance to be a number 1, then I think that takes away the need for a trade for another receiver. So really, there's still a lot of pressure on Dachshund. I know this is technically his 3rd season, but he only played 1 game his 1st season, so it's a little bit more like his 2nd season. But we'll see what Dachshund can give us. But even though I've been hard on Dachshund all season, I would stick with him over Demaryius Thomas right now.
Yeah, I think I echo that sentiment with you, man. I'm definitely down to stick with Dachshund. And I got a random bold prediction out of nowhere, but random bold prediction, Josh Dachshund has 2 games this season where he goes over 150 yards. Not many games left, but just take my word on this one, guys. And you can come back and rag on me if I'm wrong. But Josh Dachshund has 2 games that he has not had this season, over 150 yards and a touchdown. Mark my words.
I'm writing that down right now, so don't worry, listeners. I will bring this back up. Do not worry about that one. All right, so the last trade that we wanted to talk about was the Eli Apple trade, man. That's kind of breaking news right now. It happened about 30, 45 minutes ago. So the Giants have traded Eli Apple to the Saints, which to me is a locker room move. Landon Collins and a couple of the other guys had some not-so-nice comments about him last season and during the off-season. And, yeah, man, what do you think about that trade?
Well, first off, I know when Giants fans woke up and saw Giants have traded Eli, they were probably happy for a moment, then read Apple and were probably like, damn. But, Eli Apple, man, he's an interesting case, man. I remember covering the draft when he was coming out of Ohio State, and you had a guy that seemed to be extra outspoken. His mom was his agent, which was interesting, and she was doing a lot of the talking for him as well. And it was clear to me then that this guy may be a locker room issue, and I even said it at the time. But now it's manifested, and he has become that issue for the Giants. I mean, whenever you have a problem with Landon Collins, a guy who seems to be all football 24/7, at least from the outside looking in, I would definitely that's definitely a red flag. Eli Apple definitely has the talent, if you ask me. I've seen him make enough plays in the NFL, not only at Ohio State, but in the NFL. I've seen him make enough plays that I do believe in his talent and his potential. The question is, will the Saints be able to pull it out of him? And if they do, I mean, Marshawn Lattimore, who's proven his worth as an All-Pro last season as a rookie, and then you got Eli Apple, a former first-round pick, just from a few years removed on the other side. That could be a really nice secondary. That could be a really nice secondary for them going forward, and they might have positioned themselves to have a good young corner duo.
Yeah, I think it's a great move for the Saints. I know they were looking into Patrick Peterson, and Eli Apple is no Patrick Peterson, but the way that their corners have been playing this season outside of Lattimore is a good move, and it'll definitely benefit them. I mean, they're going for broke anyway. They're going for that Super Bowl championship with Drew Brees, so I think it's a great move for them. But as for the Giants and as for it pertaining to the Redskins in this coming week, I don't know exactly who was behind Eli Apple, but I expect Jay Gruden and Alex Smith to rectify this struggling passing game against a team who's trading away DBs and is having a very tough time this season.
Yeah, man, it's almost like just what the doctor ordered, man. I mean, they're weak in the secondary. They're weak on the O-line. I mean, if you watched the game Monday night, you saw these things firsthand. I mean, these guys' O-line, don't get me wrong, I had Will Hernandez rated as one of the top guards coming out. Maybe I was wrong on that. It's still early, but maybe I was wrong on that from the way he looked last night. I mean, he was getting completely ran through. And, yeah, I mean, even with those weapons, if you look at the Giants, if you take them at face value and you just let their weapons fool you and you say, man, you've got Saquon Barkley, Odell Beckham Jr., Evan Ingram, you might think it's a good offense. But in practice and, like, practically, it just isn't. They just don't have the guys in the trenches to be able to give Eli the time to even find those weapons. And 399 yards from Eli yesterday, I was kind of impressed. I don't think Eli is as done as people are making it out to seem. I'm starting to think it's an entire team problem and not just an Eli Manning thing.
Yeah, I mean, they're 1-6, right? So it's definitely the whole team. It could start with Eli, but it's not just Eli. There's no way at this point. My final thoughts though before we get out of here and before we start talking too much about the Giants, because we will have another podcast coming to you guys for the Giants preview, but. My final thoughts just on the Giants, man, is the Redskins do not have a good history in New York, and this, to me, has all the feelings and the makings of a trap game. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'll completely agree with you. And while you call it a trap game, I'm going to call it a turn-the-corner game because, as I noted last week, the Redskins had never really strung wins together during the Jay Gruden era. Now they've got two. Now against the Giants, you're playing a team that's much worse than you. We get to find out, did you guys turn the corner or was it all a facade? Will you allow this to be a trap game, and will everything up to this point, was it just a facade? If the Redskins go out here and take care of business on Sunday, I think I'm gonna be ready to say that they've effectively turned the corner into becoming, a top team.
Yeah, I would agree with that one, man. This is I'm not gonna say it's a must win, but it's definitely, I would agree with you on a turn the corner win, because this is the kind of win where you you can't have this emotional high beating Dallas and at home in a wild way and then go out to New York and lay an egg. We got to come out of this game with a victory, especially when you got the high-powered Atlanta Falcons come into D.C. after the Giants. But I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself. One game at a time. Got to take it up to New York, and we'll have a lot more information on that game for you guys later on in this week. But for now, I'm Jerome, and Bryce, you want to say peace out to the people?
Peace out. Hail to the Redskins. Hail to the culture. Thanks for listening.
Free world. Yeah. My hitters be moving and shaking to stay out the streets. Yeah. Your hitters be hating, your hitters be looking so weak. Yeah. My hitters be moving and shaking to stay out the streets. Yeah. Your hitters be hating, your hitters be looking so. Snuff the shooter, snuff the looter, snuff the booster, snuff the money mover. Snuff the hater, snuff the player, snuff your hairline, tape up and shape up.